It's time to do diligence. Here's your host, Wiley.
Today is an exciting day because we are launching the very first Due Diligence podcast. And as we begin, I have some people that I really want to say a huge thank you to. First, I have to thank my wife, Mallory, who is a faithful Christian, godly wife, beautiful mother, elementary school teacher extraordinaire, and she also helps me as we study the Bible with others and give them counsel from time to time. She has been so helpful. She's been extremely patient and very encouraging, and I can't do anything without her. I want to thank my kids, Liam, Nora, and Simon. I want to say a huge thank you to the DP Media Group and especially my good friend Eric Wallace for his expertise, creativity, patience, and for his friendship. He is truly the most talented and creative individual that I know. I want to thank all of my friends who have encouraged me to step outside of my own comfort zone and to take on this new challenge. The ideas for this podcast actually began years ago with a group of college students who are in our home around our kitchen table for a Bible study. And they have been the ones who have really encouraged and inspired me to do this. And finally, I want to thank you for listening and watching. Without listeners and watchers, podcasts would be absolutely useless. And so I want you to know that you are very important to me. And I want to hear from you. I want your thoughts, your ideas, your questions. And so I hope that you feel free to comment on our Due Diligence social media pages, on Facebook, Instagram, on X, and even on our website, duediligencepodcast.com. My name is Wiley Deason, and I am your host. A little bit about me. I grew up in Middle Tennessee and North Alabama. I was raised by godly parents in a Christ-focused home. While in college and after college, I was given a great opportunity to work in the banking industry where I ultimately served as a vice president. After almost 10 years and after getting multiple opportunities to speak and teach in various local churches, Mallory and I made a very important life decision. We decided that it was best for our family and for me to devote my full-time work to local churches. And that decision has gotten us to where we are today. We have lived in multiple states. We have served as summer camp counselors every summer for the last 15 years. We have lived in college towns and worked with college students. And so we've worked with a lot of young people, college students, married couples, and we've learned a lot along the way. And ultimately, our goal in life is very simple: to serve God by serving people with diligence, which actually leads us to our title. This is the Due Diligence podcast. And you may have already noticed this, but there is actually a play on words in the title. Due is spelled D-O instead of D-U-E. Why? Because when you read the Bible and apply it to everyday life, what you will find is that diligence is something that you can be. It's something that we do. It describes how we do things, or at least how we should do things. It is a very active word. And so, due diligence. Well, that leads us to a very important question. What does it mean to be diligent? And this question is important because for so many people, they feel as if they are constantly flying by the seat of their pants. In fact, you may know exactly what I'm talking about. Do you ever find yourself just kind of taking life as it comes, ad-libbing, making it up as you go along, faking it till you make it, winging it, or spending your life reacting or responding to situations through improvisation? Because we are all busy and because life happens, sometimes we get used to responding and reacting, and we fail to plan and be purposeful in our lives. Now, if I have just described you and summed up your life, I want you to know that you are not alone. And I also want you to know that your life doesn't have to be like an episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway?, where you are constantly trying to figure things out off the cuff. While you cannot always be in control of everything that happens in your life, you can control yourself, and diligence is a vital part of the self-control process. In the Bible, the word that is translated in English as diligence or diligent is actually used over 20 times in its various forms. It means to be eager, to do with earnestness, to be devoted, to be zealous, and to do one's best. And so, how is this concept used throughout Scripture? Well, in Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 23, the wise man says, "Watch over your heart with all diligence." In Romans 12 and verse 8, Paul tells leaders to lead with diligence. A few verses later in Romans 12 and verse 11, Paul warns every Christian about lagging behind in diligence. He says, don't do that. In Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 11, we are instructed to show diligence throughout our entire lives, so that we can enjoy the reward of heaven without falling short. In 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 5, when we add things to our faith as we grow spiritually in life, what is the very first thing that Peter tells us to apply as we grow in that faith? Diligence. But remember this. Remember that diligence is not just a word in Scripture, it is also a concept throughout Scripture. It is an attitude. It is how we do the things that we do as the people of God. So what did Solomon say in Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 10? Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. The word diligence may not be used there, but that is the concept. The same thing is true of Galatians 6 and verse 9. Let us not become weary in doing good. Don't grow weary. Don't get tired. Do your best. Do it with diligence. In Colossians 3 and verse 23 and 24, there's a verse there that I believe we all can relate to. Paul tells Christians who work for a living to do their work heartily as for the Lord. In other words, do it with all your heart. Do your very best. Do it with diligence. How are we told to love God in Scripture? Well, what is the greatest commandment? To love Him with all of our heart and with all of our soul and with all of our mind and with all of our strength. He wants every fiber of our being. He wants a diligent effort. And here's the point. If something is worth doing, it's worth doing right. Now, normally when we think about this concept, we think about when we worship as a local church. We think about giving God our very best effort in worship with our singing, praying, in our sermons, and the other things that we do together when we worship God together. And certainly this applies to the things that we do in both the worship of the church and the work of the church, but don't limit it to the church. The Bible doesn't. It speaks to the individual too. So as individuals, how can we be diligent in our daily lives? How can I practically apply this as a husband, father, friend, leader, worker, citizen? How can men and women alike use diligence in their attempts to grow and be a better, stronger version of themselves? What are some things that I need to focus on when it comes to God's concept of diligence? Let me suggest a few things. First, focus on what. What am I doing? And what do I want to accomplish? What is my goal? What is the end game? Too often, we live our lives on cruise control. We just kind of let things happen. We fly by the seat of our pants and do very little to achieve a purpose. So what am I doing? And this can apply to so many areas of life. In my career, what do I hope to accomplish? And what am I doing to actually accomplish it? And what do I want to avoid that could be a hindrance? As a spouse, what do I want my marriage to look like? And what steps am I going to take to see that through? And what do I need to look out for that could distract me from my goal? As a parent, what do I want for my children? And what am I going to do to see that I train them up in the way they should go? And what are some practices that I need to implement in my home to make sure that we do not get sidetracked from our goal? In the local church, what goals do we have as a church family? And what are we doing to achieve those goals? And what will be counterproductive along the way? Focus on the what. And when you do that, you won't major in minors or minor in majors. You will keep the main thing the main thing. And you will also be more focused on the details that actually do matter. And by the way, details matter. Even the small, little, tiny details. But remember that what may seem like a small, unimportant detail could actually be crucial. And what might seem like a huge and important detail could be nothing more than a huge distraction. In order to be diligent in your life, you have to stay focused on the what. Next, focus on the why. Why am I doing this? Why is this my goal? In other words, what is my purpose? What is my intention? Why is this important to me? And if you don't know what your purpose is, then maybe you need to hit the pause button and figure that out. Are there times in your life when you actually stop and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Diligent and intentional people do that. We don't need to get stuck in the rut of doing things just to do them. That is especially true in the local church, but it is also true in the home, in your marriage, or as parents. When Mallory and I give premarital counseling to couples before they get married, we give them marriage planning sheets and family planning sheets that they can use at the end of every year to make goals for the next year. And on those sheets, they write down what they want to do, but they also write down the why. Why is this important to them? If you want to be diligent in your life, you need to be intentional. You need to focus on the why. Finally, focus on the how. If anything is going to be accomplished with a diligent effort, your attitude is absolutely essential. So you must be positive about what you are doing. Believe in the success of what you are doing. People who believe that they will fail. But if you believe that you will succeed, you just might. After all, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing right. If you are doing anything that is a valuable use of your time, then be positive about it. Find joy in doing it. There are way too many negative people in this world. And why is that? It's because of a lack of focus and a lack of diligence. And when you have a lack of focus and a lack of diligence, that just sucks the joy right out of you. So your attitude and how you do things is extremely important. Be diligent. Doing things well with diligence gives us purpose and meaning in life. It gives us confidence in how we go about our day, how we handle challenges, and ultimately, and this is the best part, it gives us greater confidence in the God that we serve. Life is not always going to be butterflies, lollipops, and unicorns. And sometimes we are going to have to be responsive and reactive. Sometimes negative things will occur. But if we will focus on what we can control, we can be diligent in what we do, and we can be our very best. And so I hope you will join us for the next episode as we continue to talk a little bit more about diligence. And I hope that in some small way, this podcast will remind you to do diligence.
Don't forget to subscribe on all major platforms and visit our website at dudiligencepodcast.com.